Hello, African people. Welcome again to the News Africa. It is a pleasure to have you today after a long, long time. We didn't have our normal discussion in this platform, People News Africa. It's been like 2 years that we didn't meet, that we didn't discuss. Prior to that, I think in 2022, I mean 2019, and and 2020, at the beginning of it, actually, we had some very good conversations. We had normally some interesting shows that we were having to provide you with some important news related to the African world and providing you with some critical thinking about the African issues and African people's life and reality, globally speaking. So, COVID came up and disrupted everything. So, here we are back again. And what we have today for you is very, very interesting. It's actually something that you need to get to know, and obviously something that you need to be part of. So I have a wonderful brother here in the studio with me. Brother Evie is joining us from Asia, and I say he's a wonderful brother because in the few time you're going to be able to hear his wisdom, his intelligence, and his expertise when it comes to the topic of decolonization and the colonialism, as we can phrase it differently as the African world against, the Western world. As we know it, it has been, obviously, it has produced a lot of challenges in our world. So, mainly today, we are discussing about this event that is coming around July. It's called the We Charge Colonialism. Um, it's an event that is organized by a coalition of different organizations that is called the coalition is called the African Unity Movement for Decolonization. So we have a convention in July that we have to discuss and obviously come up with some strong resolution about colonialism in Africa. So the name of the convention is um, colonialism or end of colonialism or perish. I think I'm getting it right, but I think brother will be able to maybe explain more better on on that topic. So, brother Heavy, greetings to you. How are you doing over there?
Greetings, my brother Kabbalah. Thank you for having me today in this beautiful meeting and show. Thank you for all those who are watching us from back home, whether it's in Africa, whether you're in the diaspora, our friends who are located in the Caribbean and the Pacific, our brothers and sisters spread across the entire globe. This is Brother Avi from the community of Zola Bantu. Zola means love, Bantu means people. It's really an honor to be here to have a conversation with Brother Kabbalah, and I would like to really thank the African Unity Movement for Decolonization for really bringing this initiative up, and also through the task force. We have been able to have this meeting. I would also like to thank the ACUP, the African Continental Unity Party, which has an amazing vision of basically establishing an African global power base. This is something that we need in Africa. So it's an honor to come here and have a conversation to speak about Africa, and most importantly, to prepare for your minds and our hearts for July as we basically charge colonialism. So today we're going to have a conversation and just have a discussion among ourselves to really understand our, I call it, have a small diagnosis, of our African crisis, to be able to provide the best prescription, that can be able to bring us to the path of returning to the right path of liberating Mother Africa and her children to set a good foundation future for our people. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thank you very much, brother. So, just maybe a few details about the convention itself. It will take place in July, July the 24th, from the 21st to the 23rd of July. That's where the convention will take place. We have different speakers coming, from all over the world, about 400 delegates that will be attending the event. So please, you can see in the this video's description, you will see the link. Just click there to have more details in order to actually register for the event. It's very important that as African people, we get this kind of activities organized here and there, constantly, because this is where we will be able to challenge the status quo of neocolonialism. The aim of the event is to abolish the rules of neocolonialism in Africa, right? So it is time that we understand that all the challenges that we are having in Africa, we're facing as African people, are actually related to the conditions of the world, which is actually a world ruled by, by colonial powers, right? So the name of the convention, as I was saying, is perish or, unity or perish. So it's time that we need to unite as African people and challenge the structure of neocolonialism, and obviously create a way for the African liberation and African future as we have all imagined it. So, getting back to Brother Heavy, how do you, just quickly, what is your perception about this subject of colonialism and neo-colonialism, and how do you tackle it in your way? How do you tackle the question of abolishing the neo-colonialism? What are the key points that you can provide to us to understand exactly how the colonialism affects our world as African people, and how essentially we can go about improving ourselves and obviously destroying the structure of neo-colonialism that is still really uh, ruling Africa, ruling our world, and going from there to build ourselves and making African community strong community, and obviously powerful communities. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Barakabala, for that beautiful question. Colonialism, and now we have neo-colonialism. And you know very well, brothers and sisters of Africa, that we have basically colonized for 500 years, since around the 1492. I and Brother Kabbalah come from the beautiful nation of Congo, and by then, our Congo kingdom were basically one particular kingdom. We had the Congo Angola, Congo DRC, and now Congo Diafa, which is Congo Brazzaville. So we were one nation back in the days, but when the Portuguese arrived in the heart of Africa in 1492, they came looking for riches. They landed basically in the heart of Africa. They found our ancestors, basically our forefathers, were living in a certain style of life, and then because they came with their own interests of being able to acquire the resources that we had, that is how they led us into this period of colonialism. It began in the 14th century up to the 1960s, over 400 years, 460 plus years of colonialism. And then we gained the independence in the 1960s, the so-called fake independence in the 1960s. They put some puppet leaders, I like to call them Africans, and they were the ones that basically have been ruling our nations for the past so many years. But still more, they did not really leave our nations. They still continue to control us economically, even politically, even intellectually, and they have had so much influence on us for so many years. So this is just an idea of colonialism. Is basically to um, come to a place and deprive the inhabitants of the place of their natural right, and turn them into slave by occupying their land and their resources, and turning them into slave in such a way where they work for you, and then you basically benefit from them. And it's very sad, because this whole idea of colonialism is birthed from a certain vision of the world that we wanted to speak about today, which is an understanding of the paradigm. The paradigm is very important. One of my favorite writers is Stephen Covey. He wrote a book entitled The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. If many of you have been able to have an opportunity to see that book, where he mentions about what exactly is a paradigm. You see our brother Kabbalah over there, he's wearing spectacles. When he's wearing those glasses, he's having a certain perception of the sight through the help of the spectacles. If he takes off the glasses, he will see his surrounding differently. So a paradigm is basically your vision of the world. What do you perceive of the world when you think of the entire world? What is the idea that comes into your head when you perceive the entire world? What is your vision of the world? For example, if I can ask Brother Kabbalah right now, Brother Kabbalah, what is your vision of the world? Brother Kabbalah, what is your vision of the world?
Well, my vision of the world is a vision where I find myself surrounded by strong community, community of Black people, because I know that I personally want to become uh, a successful person, but a
Mm-hmm.
sustainable success can only be related to the success of the community, that you are coming from. So even though I can have success at the personal level, but if my community is still a community of people who are deprived of their rights and their humanity, well, my success is meaningless because somewhere, somehow, I'm still going to have to face some black backlash or something like that. So for me, my vision of the world is to see Africa recentered at the center of the world dynamics
Mm.
and world power. That is my vision of the world.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Brother Kabbalah. You hear Brother Kabbalah's vision of the world is, I can say, Ubuntualized. He wants to have the communities and people around him benefit. You know, his success is by seeing other people around him successful. That's the vision of Ubuntu. I am because you are. You know, so the how you see the world defines what kind of a person that you are. Stephen Covey also mentions that paradigm is a map. If you have a vision, if you know I'm going to town, you have an idea and a map that can take you to town. So if you follow that map, like how Kabbalah said, if he follows those beliefs and principles that he believes in, it can lead him to that vision of seeing Africa as a center part in the world. So when you are in a paradigm, it means you also have a vision of a certain destination and you have a map to where you're going. So different people in the world, different communities and ethnicities have a vision of the world. In Africa, 27,000 years ago, we had a vision of the world of Ubuntu, living together to grow spiritually while using the physical things around us. But many ethnicities out there, they have a different vision of the world. How do they perceive and see the world is different from the way our African ancestors used to see the world. It's what we call the paradigm, the way that you see the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just take you back to a short history of humanity for you to be able to understand how did the paradigm which the Western people, their vision of the world currently is taking the world to, and what do they envision in their vision. We are human beings, ladies and gentlemen, but we are spiritual beings that basically are having a physical experience. It means the physical body that you have is just like a vehicle that you use, you as a spiritual being, to exist on the earth. You have that energy, that fire, that consciousness of our Creator that basically incarnates into this physical body. So your mother and your father get married, and through the act of sex, they produce the receptacle. The body that you have is produced by your mother She brings in the 23 chromosomes, and your father brings in the 23 chromosomes through the sperm, and your mom 23 through the egg. It creates this body, and then halfway through the pregnancy, you incarnate. If you're a mother, you notice your belly shakes, the baby has entered. The spiritual person, the energy of the creator incarnates 5th month to the pregnancy. So we have a celestial citizenship. There's a place where we come from, but we come to experience life physically here to gain spiritual maturity. We arrived for the very first time. Science tells us that Africa is the cradle of humankind. We arrived for the very first time in the physical universe. It was prepared to receive us. We arrived in the heart of Africa, Katiopa. Today we call it Ethiopia, right by the equator, you know. And you know, we are energy. We entered into a new environment, so we had to adapt to this environment. Many of you know how to drive a car today. When they had put you in the car for the very first time, you did not drive like Lewis Hamilton. No, it took you a long time. Some of you 3 months, some of you 2 months to master your vibration and also know how to drive. If you're for example riding a bicycle before, you notice that the first time you're riding a bicycle you'll be falling because you haven't yet mastered the balance of how to balance on the bike. But after repetition and repetition, you become able to ride a bicycle and able to drive a car. So it took us a long time for the very first time when we arrived to be able to master the functioning of the body, to be able to know how to walk, to be able to basically know how to produce certain vibration with the air to produce the perfect sounds to be able to communicate among ourselves. So that process took a long time. And we were not alone. We were being helped by our elders who were basically in the spiritual dimension. They spoke to us through our solar plexus, via our intuition to the cerebellum and to the cerebrum. And then we were able to communicate with them and they would guide us spiritually. You know. So it came to a particular time when we basically misbehaved. I don't want to go into details, but we lost that spiritual connection with our Creator because of something that happened. And because of that, we became we became very egocentrism. We built what we call a tower of egocentrism. We disconnected ourselves from our Creator 27,000 years ago. And because of our own egocentric behavior, we begin to manipulate the laws of nature. You know, and because of the manipulation of the laws of nature, we ended up even into creating what we call the nuclear and atomic bombs. It did not exist only now, but it even existed back in the days 27,000 years ago. And you know very well, my dear brothers and sisters, that if you place all the continents, you squeeze them together, you notice that they fit like a puzzle. Why? Because in the beginning, when we arrived in Ethiopia, the tectonic plates were not divided, they were closer together. There was land everywhere. But because of the manipulation of the laws of creation, it led to a large nuclear war that basically destroyed the tectonic plates. And many of our brothers and sisters who were found around the equator, unfortunately, because of the tectonic plates dividing and the water rising and pushing the continents far from each other, many of our own people, melanated black people, by the way, because the first man was black, because he was put from the soil. The body was made from the soil, but the spirit entered into the body. So the body had to be created by the equator. It needed to have a certain melanin to accept the amount of sunlight to break down the vitamin D's into proteins. So the first man was actually an African man. But because of the tectonic plates dividing and forming into the continents, many of our own brothers and sisters back in the days were basically pushed further closer to the ice wall because we have an ice wall. Many of you are taught in the paradigm of the West that we live in the globe, but no, we actually live on a plane, and there's an ice wall that surrounds us. So many of our relatives and many other people, because of the separation of the tectonic plates, they were pushed further, like the North America and Canada and Russia, they are very close to the ice wall. So there was very high climate over there of cold. So from 27,000 BC up to around 15,000 BC, when they were over there close to the ice wall, many of them began to lose their skin pigmentation. I'm sure many of you have seen albinos in Africa. Albinos lack the melanin. So they began to lose their skin pigmentation, and they began to lose their hair, began to grow. They went through a process that was very, very difficult for them because of our own manipulation of the laws of creation. So from 27,000 BC up to 15,000 BC, they lost their skin pigmentation. Many of our own ancestors remained in the heart of Africa. You see, so because many of the brothers and sisters were spread all across the continent, I mean the world in different continents. One of our fathers, one of our ancestors, Nimi Congo, we are taught in the Congo ancestry, the Europeans call Noah, was basically called upon by the Creator to lead his family up into down. It's not up, actually, it's down, because the map of Africa is actually upside down, and the one that we have is not the correct position. The position is, you have to invent it. So he had to lead basically our brothers and sisters down into Egypt to create a civilization, a new civilization that would enable those brothers and sisters who were lost over to the other continent due to the tectonic plates dividing could come to learn knowledge in Kingipiti in Egypt. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, you know that the melanin is able to attract sunlight. So many of our brothers and sisters who were spread across the ice wall, many of them, when we give him birth to other reproducing, the energy and spirit that was incarnating in those flesh was not coming from the, the original place, which is the spiritual kingdom, but it began to come from other dimensions where those spirits had lost their contact with the Creator for some time. So the Creator had allowed them to incarnate into the earth so we could be able to teach them the love of God. So many of the white skin or light skin races received those kind of energies and spirits that were not really of the love of Ubuntu in them. So they went on and built big civilization, and one of their biggest civilization was the civilization of Atlantis, that they had built the big civilization of Atlantis. But unfortunately, they began to manipulate the laws of nature also in Atlantis, and then Atlantis was drowned because of their own stupidity. And this is mentioned also in the writings of Plato. So we had to go to build a civilization in Egypt, 15,000 BC, to allow others who had lost their way to come and learn wisdom of God the Creator in Egypt. So, but unfortunately, these people who were coming back, our brothers, but who have lost pigmentation and different types of energies and spirits have incarnated their flesh, they began to come to Egypt to learn. But when they came to Egypt, they began to bring their own pagan practices, their own barbarous and savage practices, which did not really align with our own civilization in Egypt. But because even our own ancestors began to lose their own way, we began to embrace different cultures. That is how we began to be influenced by foreign cultures and pagan cultures that those fallen beings brought to Egypt. So our civilization in Egypt was from 15,000 BC up to 2000 BC. We reigned in the golden age. We built the pyramids. We did amazing things in Egypt that you can see till today. You can read in many books that we did. But unfortunately, because of intermarriage with other nations who did not really know the Creator, who did not really walk in the right way, it led to all these infiltrations into our kingdoms, and it led to the fall of Egypt. And our kingdom of Egypt came to fall. I'm just trying to summarize to keep it short because we don't have so much time. Our civilization of Egypt came to fall around 1400 BC with the killing of our pharaoh Kenatu. The Europeans call him Akhenaton, but his name was Pharaoh Kenatu. Pharaoh Kenatu had made a mistake. He married a princess of Babylon, and from that union, it gave birth to um, two daughters. The first daughter's name was Nefertiti, and the last daughter, I don't quite remember her name, but she was closer to her mother. Nefertiti was closer to her father. And then the last daughter of Kenatu, because she was closer to her mother, who was a Babylonian, she married a prince of Babylon. And from this marriage of the Kenatu's daughter, last daughter, and the prince of Babylon, they gave birth to a child by the name of Tutankhamun. Mm. They've given them different names in these days, but his name was Tutankhamun. So the prince of Babylon then came to invade Egypt finally and killed Kenatu. He put Nefertiti underground and starved her to death. Worst of all, he even killed his own child, Tutankhamun, so he can become the pharaoh in Egypt. And then our ancestors were led again by the Creator to leave Kingipiti to go towards Canaan, the promised land. So that is how our leader, Massa, others call him Moshe or Moses, had to take some of the Israelites out. Israelites is Israel. Look at the name Israelites. Israel. Isis, Ra, Elohim. Isis was the wife of Horus. They had a child, Osiris. Isis is the feminine energy. Horus is the masculine energy. Osiris is the Christos, the spirit of God which is in you. The Christos, the Osiris. In Kikongo we say Maungu. That is what we call Osiris. So those were actually African people, black people. And Ra is the connection, the media, the sun god. It's the connection between the humanity and Elohim, the creator. So that's why they were called the Israelites, because they were people that were connected to the creator. So Master Moses had to take our people out and lead them to Canaan, because by then there was a new pharaoh in King Gipiti who was a Babylonian, who was basically mistreating the people. All this is mentioned in the sacred text, like in the Bible, though it has been manipulated. So we went to an exile of over 1,000 years, being chased everywhere, being killed everywhere. They did not want to see us, the Bantu people, to succeed in anything. So we went to an exile of 1,000 years back to Canaan. So Canaan is not what we've been taught in the Middle East. Canaan is actually the heart of Africa, around Angola and Congo. That is the promised land, a land flowing in milk and honey. It means a very rich land with mineral resources. So they came and arrived basically in Canaan around 490 AD. We began to rebuild ourselves slowly, slowly again, but there was an international complot to destroy the Bantu people, because we are the ones that still had that connection with the Creator, but they really wanted to get us out of the surface of the earth. So these so-called elites, I'm not saying all white people like that, but the top 10% of these people, they are not really Ubuntu-ized people in their heart. Their ultimate goal is to destroy the Bantu people. That is why they try to keep us in ultimate poverty as possible. So we arrived in Canaan around 490 AD. I'm going to spare you the history of the King David and Solomon. We arrived in Canaan in 498. It means in the heart of Africa. We began to rebuild ourselves again slowly. We built the kingdoms of Ghana on our way, kingdoms of Carthage, Mali, kingdoms of Zulu, Mwenamutapa, kingdoms of Benin, up to when we arrived in the heart of Africa, 490 AD. We began to rebuild ourselves, and up to the point where we established the Congo Kingdom. But unfortunately, these people who were basically in Europe by then, they read in our writings that our Creator had sent us basically to the heart of Africa, and they came after us back to the heart of Africa to look for us, to completely erase us from the face of the planet. But unfortunately, we had a very strong connection with our Creator, so we resisted them for the very first time when Diego Cao came in 1492. And when they went back and then they studied our customs and our spirituality, they came to realize that the best strategy to win us or destroy us is to enter into our own understanding of the world, and they brought us what they call religion. So when they had come to Egypt, when we were visiting Egypt, they took most of our writings in the temples that they went to it in Greece and later in Rome, and then created a book out of our writings, which they call the Bible, 66 books. They met in the Council of Nicaea 225 AD and the Council of Constantinople 553 AD. They began to really strategize and put the right kind of words in the scriptures, put them into 66 books, and then gave the so-called missionaries to come to our lands and teach us what we call religion. And many of our ancestors were using what we call the spears for fighting. But again, even among ourselves, we had people who deceived us physically and who began to deal with the foreigners. And because of that, we lost our connection with the Creator, and then they dominated us. And most of our people were forced into were forced religion on them by force. They were killing people. You had to accept. We knew Master Yeshua came uh, in North Africa 2,000 years ago, our brother who looked like us, but they brought us a Master Yeshua who has become blonde, blue eyes, white, Jesus, whatever, and they had to force our ancestors into this belief. They were killing people to accept this teaching for over 500 years. So 500 years, it is 13 generations. Imagine, Barakabala, I force you into Christianity today, and then all your children to the 13th generation, I teach them something new. Obviously, I will erase your roots in 13 generations. One generation is 40 years. 500 divided by 40, you find around 12 to 13 generations. So they completely erased our spirituality for 500 years, and they gave us religion, which is basically stuck in dogmas and precepts. We now believe in a savior in the sky. We believe in so many things which was not part of our roots. So this is our problem, our struggle for over 500 years. So the paradigm of the West is the paradigm of accumulation of riches. These spirits that incarnated those fallen pigmentation skin, their ultimate goal was to see how they can take control of the resources of the earth so as to deprive us physically of our physical needs, to destroy our relationship with our Creator. So, this whole strategy of world domination and acquiring the resources of Africa is a strategy to keep Africa poor so that the children of Africa cannot have that relationship with our Creator. So, we entered into colonization for 500 years. They gave us independence, fake independence. And worst of all, they took many of our own people who were in Africa during the time of colonization. They took them to big universities in their world and trained them and brainwashed them according to their own paradigm, and then created a so-called African intellectuals created in the paradigm of the West, and they are basically returned back to our nations, and they are basically just playing the role of the puppet masters. So now the master cannot enslave you. Now someone like you, your own brother who left speaking Lingala, now he's back speaking French. He left speaking Zulu, now he's back speaking English. He wears a necktie at 60 degrees of temperature. He basically looks like the slave master, and now he can tell you how to run your life because we have lost that connection with our Creator. So when you speak about decolonizing the mind, we have to understand our history from the spirituality point of view. I have brushed a little bit on the surface, and also from the physical point of view. The spirituality point of view is that we have lost our connection with our Creator. And even in the physical aspect, we have also lost our intellectual knowledge. Like I said, a human being is a spirit that lives in a body. It's like you are a driver in a car. Now, mind you, the car has its own capacity. A car can go at 100 kilometers per hour speed. It has a certain type of engine to perform certain kind of function. So the car has its capacity. Even the driver has its own capacity. Your body has intellectual knowledge on how you can gather the resources of the world and create a world that is good. But your spirit also has its capabilities of producing virtues, fruits of the spirit: love, kindness, joy, peace, faithfulness, gentleness, self control. These are the capacities of the spirit. The capacities of the body is intellectual. You use the five senses. So your driver who has the spiritual capacities needs to use your physical capacity of five senses to create a world of harmony, like how Brother Kabbalah says, a world where Africa is the power center of the world by physically, but driven spiritually also. So people say when people they don't pray, how come their countries are developed? Because the white person, even though he has lost his connection with his creator, he has worked his intellectual capacity. You know, if you climb into a donkey, the donkey has a brain. The donkey has a brain, the donkey can run very fast. You who have climbed into the donkey, you also have your own strength. You also have your own skills. But when you climb into a donkey, you now have to force the donkey to obey you and go where you want to go. You see? So the civilization of the West has elevated the knowledge of the donkey, but the donkey rider is asleep. Now, that is why you see in Western countries, they are developed, so called developed, because they have elevated the brain, the intellectual knowledge. Even though they are dead in the spirit, they have no connection with the Creator, but they have worked their intellectual capacity. They have worked the word in the material level. They have really mastered materialism and they have developed the word materially, but their connection spiritually is not there. Now, we black people, because of colonization, we have been destroyed both spiritually and they have deprived us of intellectual capacity. So spirituality, we are dead. Intellectually, we are dead. That is why we are in precarity. But for them, spiritually, they are dead, but intellectually, they are strong. That is why the economies is developed, so-called developed, because they have worked their intellect. But they have deprived Africans of working their intellect. And worst of all, they have destroyed the spirituality of Africans. So we are 2-0 down. But them, even though they have lost the connection with the Creator, they still have intellectual capacity. They have worked their neurons, they have worked themselves intellectually. So, as an African, you have a choice today. Do you want to also fight the Europeans by also becoming strong intellectually like them? Or do you want to awaken your Osiris also and be strong intellectually and also be strong spiritually? But I think spiritual strength is more powerful than physical strength. So we have to make that choice. Because I hear people say, let's also create atomic bombs, let's also make armies and kill them. Well, that is up to how we're going to decolonize our mind. We have to now understand all these things. So that is what we're trying to do as Africans, to see how we can wake up the intellectual capacity of an African and also wake up the spiritual capacity of an African. Because if you're a driver, you're in a car, and they deprive you of the fuel, you won't go anywhere. You know. So no matter how much you pray in your church, but if you don't eat, you don't have water to drink, you don't have electricity, no internet, you're in poverty. No matter how much you pray, nothing will happen to you. You see. So they have deprived our cars of the fuel, and then they are enjoying the fuel. That is why they come to Africa to take our resources to keep us in poverty, to deprive us of the fuel. It means our driver, even if you are Lewis Hamilton, you're given a car with no fuel, with no wheels and no engine, then you have nothing to do. So that is the paradigm of the West, to acquire all the resources of Africa and keep it to themselves, so they can deprive us of everything. So we have to know our history, Barakabala. This is what I can say in the few minutes that we have with you right now. But there are more ways we can dive into deeper into this kind of conversation to really understand how can we decolonize our mind in understanding our history as a people as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Brakabala, over to you, my brother.
Thank you so much, brother Hervey, for that historical perspective that you have just given to us. I think you have done a good one to actually give us the origin of the colonialism that we are suffering from today by bringing some historical facts in a way that shows how we have fallen, uh, intellectually speaking as well as spiritually speaking. Before I go further, I have an interesting question here by King Kwado Ajayeboa. I think you'll be able to maybe to see the question. So the last part of the question is what I wanted to bring to you. Since the creator knew about uh, uh, knew about everything, can we say that he is the creator who is the cause of our downfall today? Because he knew everything, he has power over everything, and I think his question is, according to you, all these
Hmm.
events, where all these events have been ordered, guided, or permitted by the creator. Did the
Very interesting
creator
question.
have the knowledge of the knowledge of the end results as the ending us in the state where we find ourselves today? Can we say that the creator, according to your preposition, is the cause of all our problems? What's your take on that, brother?
Wow, that's a very nice question. I like it. That is the struggle that I had when I was basically beginning to ask important questions. Was do we actually live life like a movie? It means the screenplay was already done, everything was done, and we're just reliving what the creators planned. I came to understanding no. You see, Brother Kabbalah, the universe that our creator created, it is run by laws. He created the universe and then he made this universe to function by laws. And the most important thing that our creator gave us is a free will. We have a certain power that even our creator has. We can even choose against him. We can say no to him. But if you look in the house of our creator, he has his children and then he has his servants. Servants are called entities. Servants are called angels in Christianity. And then he has his children. Children are called spirits. God's children are spirits, they have a free will to choose and do as they like. But the entities, they are actually like softwares. They have been installed to perform only what the Creator has asked them to do. So there's a difference between entities and spirits. Entities have no free will. Angels have no free will. They do exactly as you want them to do. But spirits have a free will. For example, Barakabala, if you get married with your wife and in your house, you have your own children. Suppose you have three children. Your children are yours. But in your house, you also have workers. The maid, the garden boy. The garden boy and the maid, they cannot do anything in your house. No. But your children, because they are your children, they have some sort of movement, a free will. They can do certain things because they are daddy's child. I'm daddy's children. They have a free will. But the servants don't have a free will. So we that are spirits which have a free will, we were created in such a way we can choose to even not do what God wants us to do. But our choices is guided by laws. When you choose the right path of following the ways of God, it brings upon you blessings. But when you choose the opposite, it brings upon you curses and karma. You see? So it's not that our Creator knew everything. No. Just by the fact that He gave us the free will to even choose against Him, He created what He created and His creation was done. and he let what was created to function by laws. So it's not to say that God knows what will happen in the future. No, no. God knows what will happen in the future with his entities because he gave them no free will. You know, if you're an IT specialist and you type a code in your computer and you want things to function a certain way, you can predict that if I press A in the computer, it will appear A because you click the code. But if you're a person, it's different because we have a free will. I can choose A or I can choose B. So just to answer the brother freely is to say that spirits have a free will. Entities do not have a free will. And because we have a free will, we can choose yes or no. And our capacity to choose yes or no, the creator is locked out of it. And that is the power of we human beings. We have the same power as the creator. We can choose for him or against him, my brother.
So if I got you right, brother, you meant that this entity called God, as it is being described in Christianity, the all-knowing, the all-powerful, the all-present, he doesn't know the future, actually. For example, he
No,
does know
because
what can happen tomorrow after tomorrow.
the idea of omnipresent omnipotent was introduced in the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Constantinople to tell you that, okay, this was a strategy of colonization. Huh? That God already knows that by Kabbalah you will be in heaven, others will burn in hell. So don't worry about life right now. It makes life much easier. You know, okay, I know, okay, at the end of time I'm gonna be in heaven, but the Kabbalah will be in hell. So why make an effort right now? Life becomes a lazy thing. But no, that was a strategy of the Luciferian beings in the Council of Nations to make it seem as if God already knows what will happen to you. No, let me give you an example by the Kabbalah. If a thief is going out and is stealing people's things, and then one day the thief is caught and the thief dies, is killed and dies, did God want that thief to be killed? No. So it means we are the writers of our own destinies. The decisions that we make daily, it shapes a certain destiny for us. You see? So we are the ones that design our destiny. It's not God that said, Barakabala, you become a doctor. Brother Avi, you become a lawyer. No, it is the choices and the decisions that you make that leads you to a certain particular destiny. You see? So we have the power that our Creator has, the power of free will. And because of that power of a free will, our Creator is locked out of our choice, out of our decision that we're going to make. So that strategy of putting God omnipresent and omniscient was a strategy in the Council of Nicaea to drive the religion deeper into the mind of an African, to think that at the end of time, you're already selected, you are saved, God loves you, forget about the earth, focus about heaven, you're already saved. No, it's not a good understanding of spirituality. Hmm? Because how can you, it doesn't make sense. You have a free will to choose how you want, and yet you say God has already predestined you to be this. No, you hear in Congolese culture, Nzamba ebi finanga, God knows my end. No, it is what you do presently that will shape your end. So if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school. You have to study hard. If you want to be a pilot, you have to go and learn physics. So the decisions that you make daily, that is the power of the free will. We are the masters of our own destinies. We create our own destinies by the actions that we make. Let me give you another good example. You're a man, maybe in your teenage age. All you do is involve in so many sexual relationships with women, spending all that energy for nothing. Some people enter into masturbation. You enter into marriage, all of a sudden you cannot have children. Why? Because Baninga like Okomi impuissant. So the decisions that you made when you were a teenager, by those actions, it has led you to become, you're not able to have a baby with a woman. So are you saying that God destined you to be sterile? No. You see, so we have to be very careful on omnipresent and omniscient. One day I might speak to it in depth to explain what it means. But the way we have understood it in Christianity, it makes us lazy. It makes us irresponsible. You don't want to take charge of your life. You hear in Congo say, all leaders come from God. Kabila ndea bongo nza mtapona kie. No, what kind of nonsense is that? No. It is your decisions as a nation, as a country that has made you to have a certain kind of a leader. You cannot say this leader came from God. No. We hear this so many things, leaders are from God. No. You see, so that debate is very, very dangerous because it really drives white supremacy in the angle of religion even more. To think that your life is already destined for you. No, we are the shapers of our own destinies. The decisions that we make daily creates for us a certain destiny. I made a decision to come to India. God did not make the decision for me. I made it. I would have gone to America. I would have gone to Europe. I made a decision to come to India. So I made that decision because I am a spirit. But entities, angels, they are softwares which do exactly what God wants them to do. And they are different from spirits. But spirits are children of God. We decide, we have a choice. That is why, for example, for those of you who are Christians, for example, that is why when Adam and Eve chose to eat the fruit, God could not intervene. Because every time God speaks, his word becomes law. And God cannot break his own law. He told them that you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but don't eat from this tree. He gave them a law. That is why when they were plucking the fruit, he was watching. He could not intervene because if he intervened, he would have broken his own law. You see? So God is sovereign until he speaks. Because every time he speaks, his word becomes law. You see? So what I can say about the Kabbalah for now, maybe next time we can dive deeper into it.
Indeed, interesting. I think we're gonna have to create time to have this deep discussion because as you were talking, I had a lot of questions, and I'm sure many people have many questions that they would want to ask to understand this concept really deeply. And trust me, it's a challenging one. So, but thank you very much. I think you have given us some good points there. So now, in relation to this convention that is coming for the African decolonization, for ending the colonization of African people, globally speaking, uh, how can this knowledge uh, be transformed into certain type of actions in order to end the neo-colonialism that is being imposed onto African people, in your understanding?
Well, to be able, we are spirit, we're spiritual beings. We live in a physical body. We're a driver in a car. We need the fuel. Okay, so we need to deal with the practical aspects of providing the fuel for the car. And that is an amazing question that you asked. So the first thing is education. We need to decolonize the mind. Education means we need to close all the schools that we have in Africa. I'm sorry. All the schools that we have in Africa, university, secondary schools, primary schools, we have to close them. Why? Because the curriculum in the schools comes from the West. I went to school in Malawi. My final exam came from Britain, Cambridge. It means our colonizers are the ones that educate us in Africa. That is why you see, you can walk on the street, ask a Congolese guy, if you grow up, where do you want to go? America. Where do you want to go? Europe. Everyone wants to leave the continent. Why? We're educated using their syllabus. Okay, to speak English, it means you are an important person. If you speak Zulu, you are less. So we have to close the schools for the Kabbalah. We need to organize, the convention needs to organize and bring together amazing African scholars to create a new education system for Africa, which is based on African values. We close the schools, we close the university schools, we send all the university students into manual works. You learn how to be plumbing, you learn electricity, you learn carpentry, any manual work that you can do with your hands. Because a degree removed manual works. Back in the days, you needed you did not need a degree to earn a living. You could just know certain skills and provide for your family. But education of the West removed the skills part, and they made everything memorization, memorization in their schools. So we have to close the schools. University students have to go through manual works training. Secondary school students have to go through initiation to discover their skills and their gifts. Primary school students will learn nature. Second strategy is food. We have to make sure that every African on the continent can grow their own food. For Kabbalah, you have a house behind your backyard, a small garden. You grow tomatoes, I will grow onions. The other guy will grow pondu. End of the month, we'll exchange. We have to put that mentality that everyone needs to grow their own food. Why do you need money to eat? We live in a world where there's so many things. Why do I need 500 rand, 200 rand to eat? Why? We have to remove money from food. Food. Yes, we will have big farms, but we need to grow our own food. As a matter of fact, the president needs to make it a law that you are in a house, you have to have a garden. If you don't have a garden, you'll be arrested. We need to put it as a law. Strategy number three, media. We have to remove all the Western media out of Africa. YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, WhatsApp, StreamYard, Zoom. We have to remove the media influence out of Africa. We have to censor some of this information. It's destroying our children. We have to remove the media influence. Education, food, media. Strategy number four, we need to build our own African army. We need to recruit young people between the ages of 25 and 35 in every African communities, every African countries. Train them how to defend themselves. Once you finish high school, before going to university, you go through military training first. 25 to 35. We need to train our young people into military. Strategy number five is women. We have to restore the African woman. The African woman has become a microbe. Look at them on Instagram today, twerking and dancing, bodies exposed. It's a disaster, our women. But our women are the most important part also of our society. A woman is the God help of humanity. A woman is more important than even a man because a woman, when that scripture in the Bible, it says that the woman is the helper. If you go in Greece, that word helper is translated to Ezer. And that word Ezer is only used in reference to a woman being a helper. It means it's only a woman who helps like God. She's the God help of humanity. A woman is the foundation of society. She's the one that gives birth. She's the one that protects the family in terms of keeping the family together. So when we restore our women, the men will come. Like Abala, have a party in your house. Just invite young girls from South Africa, age of 18 to 19. The boys will come looking for the girls. So when you restore the women, the men will come. So those five strategies: education, remove the Western education, grow our own food, remove the Western media completely. All these YouTube and Hollywood movies, remove it. Look at China. China, they have their own WhatsApp called WeChat. They use WeChat in China. They pay their school fees in WeChat. They watch movies on WeChat. Everything is on there because they know the power of the media. But in Africa, you see everyone is using WhatsApp. We have amazing software engineers in South Africa, Barakabala, you know them, in Nigeria, who can design a good network for Africans. So we need to get rid of the media and then army and then women. If these things we can touch it, we can these things if we touch it, we can just deal with the car. Just the car. And now we can talk about how we can deal with the spirit. That is a different issue.
And thank you very much. Before I jump to the question that has been dropped right now, I just want to obviously inform all our listeners that we are having this discussion related to the African Unity Movement for Decolonization Convention that is coming in July. You can find much details attached to this video on Facebook. So please join, register to join the convention. We have many scholars, experts around the world, from the African world actually, who are coming to speak. And already you have started to listen to what Brother Evi is discussing this in this show. You can imagine what will come in that particular convention. So we are in that stage of transforming the knowledge into actions, because we have obviously gained the knowledge for quite some times now. So knowledge itself is not going to serve you. It's only when you begin to put the knowledge into practice. That is why it was giving us five principles or five techniques of how we can apply the knowledge that we have gained. So this convention is going to be really a good turning point for this year, 2022. It's actually coincide with the 100th years anniversary of Marcus Garvey. So if you are Pan African and you love Africa, you want to see Africa change, please join, register for the convention. You can book your place now. Register, and obviously let's do this together. So let me get back to the last question that I have here. How can we expect the colonial established governments across Africa to close down the colonial schools in Africa? Can that genuinely be a starting point? Brother Heavy, how do you think about it?
Well, it's a very good question because I'm not saying it's easy, it's going to be difficult. Why? Because we have three types of Africans. We have the Africans, we have the Africans, CANT, and then we have the African, like Brother Kabbalah and many of you are watching us today. The Africans, COONS, are those that are basically keeping the colonial power to continue to exist because they are being given some small percentage and commissions from the work that they're doing. So many of our leaders in Africa, in all the African countries, are Africans. Many of our celebrities in Africa are Africans because they are paid by these big medias to keep African generations asleep. Many of our rich businessmen and women in Africa are Africans. So the economic power of Africa is in the hands of Africans who are controlled by the West, by the colonial power. You see, so the Africans, we have about 1.4 billion Africans in the world, and Africans only make 65 million of them. 65 million Africans. Africans are those who live on survival mode. They have no choice because the system keeps them down. They are uneducated, they are ignorant, they are locked in mental prisons, they're in religion, they believe in a savior in the sky. Some Muslims, Africans can jump into the mall and blast themselves for 72 virgins in heaven. So they are mentally extravated. 800 million Africans. And then we have what we call the African. We're only a few. 200 million people. But even among ourselves, we don't get along. So I do agree with the brother. It's very difficult, to be able to chase the education system completely. But we can start small. It doesn't mean we should chase them out immediately. Every African's family can start to teach their children African education at home. Let them go to Western schools during the day, during the weekends. Take them to an African social center or an African traditional center where they can learn African customs and African traditions. After the point where you begin to shift from the weekend, okay, I'll be sending my child maybe to school twice or three times a week. The other time I'll be teaching my child at home. You see, just like that, after the point where we get to the point we have homeschooling. You see, so if we make these decisions, the parents begin to make such decisions from a young age. It'll be very, very important. So if you, for example, you're in the university, you go to your lecture classes, your lectures, but during in your free time, try to learn a manual skill. Try to learn some carpentry. Try to learn some electricity. Learn some manual skills that does not require a degree. Learn something manually. You see, so it will take time. To eradicate education system out of Africa, it can take even 10 to 20 years. But we have to be able to start from somewhere. You see, because and worst of all, many of our Africans, it's a problem because they are educated in the Western mentality. it'll be very difficult. But we need to start from somewhere. We need to have, we can say, for example, in every African country, we have what we call an African primary school, an African secondary school that opens maybe twice a week, where Africans can go and learn African culture of Ubuntu. They can learn how to make clothes with their hands. The boys can learn how to fish. The women can learn how to knit their hair. Just encourage the African culture. And then slowly we're moving away from it. But at the meantime, we have to get some scholars that can design an African education system, that completely, we're not saying that we'll throw away everything from that we got from the West. No, there are some things from the Western education that we can learn from, that we can adopt, but there are many things that we need to remove. Memorizations we have to remove. you, for example, a child, that your child Barakabala is good at singing, but you send her to a school where she's learning mathematics, history, geography, IT, 15 subjects. For what? Why not just focus on the gift of your child and push her through music? Your child is good at maths. Focus more on maths. Let him become an excellence in maths. I was, for example, in high school. They would teach us everything. And today I barely use it. Hmm? I barely use the things I learned in school. There are basic things like mathematics and science, but today we have 15 to 20 subjects. For what? Literature, philosophy, and philosophy of what? The Greeks. You see, so we have to really do an important part on the education. It's very, very critical. We need great minds across Africa that can come and sit on the table and we can discuss, okay, in primary school, we should teach our children this according to our African roots. Let's teach our children this in secondary school, in the university. And today, universities, life is taking so long. Back in the days in Africa, by the time you got to the age of 25, you were done and everything, you became a responsible person in the society. But today, having people going up to 35, 45, is still going to school, learning PhD, doctorate. What is this? By the time you get to 40 years old, you're old and you're tired, you can't even enjoy the life anymore. Otangi, 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 you have gone to school your entire life, going to school, up to 35, 38. You end up marrying at 40. By the time your child will be 10 years old, you are 50. Man, what is the sense of life in this? If you can't even enjoy the life that you have. But in our time, we used to marry at 20, 25. Young, you're still strong, you can play football with your kids. I always envy these footballers in Europe. They have so much money, they can have a child at 22, 21, they're enjoying life. But Africans on the continent, you want them to Karanta, you're still waiting to give the money for Lobola. And you have to work hard for the money for Lobola for another 5 years. So we need to, there's a lot to do, my brother. There's a lot to do. It's very difficult. The African has been, our car has no petrol, no diesel, even kerosene, no water, nothing. It's very difficult, my brother.
Interesting. Interesting. No, thank you very much. Well put there. And I can see that King Kwado has agreed with you. Very thankful to you for your presentation today. I'm sure
Thank you
that
so much.
we have lots to cover, and probably we should create other opportunities to come and obviously delve more into all these aspects because I think they are very important. Our people have to understand certain things related to our reality, situation on life, and so on. So if we don't understand, we don't have that paradigm that can help us to look at ourselves as a people and have our own orientation of life. We're going to be always following those who have a particular paradigm because we don't recognize ours and simply because we
Mm,
don't understand ourselves and our reality. So thank you very much for this show. This was a People News Africa, a show that has been brought to you by the African Unity uh, for Decolonization.
mm,
Uh, this is a coalition that obviously has brought together different organizations, different Pan-African organizations, to hold or to host a convention that will take place in July from the 21st to the 23rd of July. The title of the convention is Unity or Perish. The aim of this
mm,
convention is to dismantle the structure of neocolonialism that is still obviously subjecting Africa to the conditions of underdevelopment and all the precarities that we know of as
Mm.
African people, globally speaking. So it is time that we need to come together, discuss, and take actions. And if you haven't yet registered, you can find the link in the description of this video and just click and register or reserve your place because it's going to be amazing. We're going to have about 300 people. You're going to have to select which show you want to listen to, which speaker you want to listen to, what kind of program you want to belong to. So it's going to be really massively interesting for everyone. So thank you very much, Brother AV, for your input today. It has been really, really beneficial. One thing that I can say remarkably I'm taking away and I need to do research on that is that the so-called God doesn't know the future, just like me. That's very interesting. So thank you very much for everything, and I say peace and power. Enjoy your evening. Peace, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Register for uh, the amazing event, 21st. Please register. And yeah, like how Barakabala said, the link is in description. We love you so much, and we're hoping to see you soon in the coming. There'll be amazing presentation coming also very soon, and also in the convention as well in July. Peace and love to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.